Hello and welcome to this Red Gaming Tech video, myself and Marta, where today as always I have the latest and greatest from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours. Now we're going to kick things off with a couple of things from Nvidia, and unfortunately we're going to start things off with a bit of bad news regarding Turing. Now of course Nvidia revealed the RTX 2070, 2080 and 2080 Ti a little while ago now, but we've also had a very recent full reveal of the Turing architecture, and Paul has assured me that yes, he is going to be doing a deeper dive on the architecture. Now of course when they initially unveiled the RTX series, Nvidia did say that we'll be seeing a release of September the 20th for the 2080 and the 2080 Ti, with an October release for the 2070. Unfortunately we have had a slight delay for general availability of the RTX 2080 Ti. It's going to be delayed by a week, so going from September 20th to September 27th. Now, if you've pre-ordered, unfortunately you're not going to escape this completely, as they have also been affected, and those units will arrive between the 20th and the 27th. So, for the launch, it's just going to be the 2080 all on its lonesome, as of course we've seen the 2080 Ti a week later, and then of course the 2070 at some nebulous date in October. Not really brilliant to have it delayed, especially when it was due out in just a few days, but it's only a delay of a week, so I can't really complain too much. It's just kind of frustrating that pre-orders being affected as well, but it is what it is. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean you are going to get your card late. Your pre-order might still arrive on the 20th, or it might arrive on the 27th. It really seems to be an inventory issue, as we would expect a new video card release. We're going to be seeing availability be a bit of an issue, especially with crypto mining and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, if you've pre-ordered, you may or may not get it on the 20th, and if you haven't, unfortunately, you have to wait an extra week to actually purchase your 2080 Ti. So let's move on to our second Nvidia news, which is actually regarding overclocking. So, obviously, the base clocks are fine if you don't want to mess around with overclocking. I don't really blame you. When I first got into PC gaming, I was a little intimidated by the idea. Like, what if I break it? What if it catches on fire? But obviously, it's only gotten easier with various third-party applications, and it is obviously fairly safe to do. Now, Nvidia is actually making it even easier for you to do overclocking and not have to worry about tweaking that setting just right, you know, putting that one up 1 or 2%, taking that one down 5% or whatever, as they have announced a new API called Nvidia Scanner, and is going to be for one-click overclocking. So essentially what the API does, it will allow for automated adjustment of clock speeds and voltage. It runs a sort of arithmetic routine, and basically it will attempt to run various things until a crash is detected, and obviously it will revert back to the previous state, and then obviously it knows, okay, that's the maximum I can go before a crash actually happens. Now, at the moment, of course, it's really hard to say how actually useful this is going to be. We do have obviously MSI Afterburn and EVGA's Precision X1 also have automatic tuning capabilities as well, so just how useful it's actually going to be in a real world scenario, if it's actually going to beat what a human can do in the same sort of amount of time, is really going to have to remain to be seen, I'm afraid. Obviously, it is being released to board partners, and it is being released in time for the RTX 2080 launch. Now, obviously, it can be used with any card. It's not just for the RTX series, but it is being timed with the release of that for fairly obvious reasons. So once it's released into the wild, we can really get our hands stuck into this and see how actually useful it's going to be. I mean, I'm definitely interested, you know, taking the sort of the ache out of overclocking, the really sort of tedious, like, okay, this I want to get the most out of it before we get a crash, you know, getting rid of that, sign me up, basically. But whether or not it's actually going to get the best results, it's versus what you can do yourself through trial and error, again, will have to remain to be seen. So let's move on from Nvidia, shall we, to AMD and EPYC. And what I actually have here is some benchmarks, or a benchmark to be more exact, and this is once again thanks to the folks over at Chip Hell, and they are reportedly saying that this is a benchmark for EPYC 7nm, which of course is Rome, and is going to be powered by Zen 2. Now the specs of this thing are unsurprisingly monstrous. It has 64 cores and 128 threads. So when you take that pure beef that it's got under the hood and run some Cinebench on it, well, what do you actually get? And the answer is, well, a rather crushing 12,587 points. So let's put that in some sort of context, shall we? Well, we have a result for the previous EPYC, around 6K, and for Threadripper 2990WX, of course the new Threadripper, we're gaining 5600. So we are seeing EPYC stomp both of these, unsurprisingly. Now, what's interesting here is that if this is legit, and that is a huge if, by the way, as with any leaked benchmarks, unofficial benchmarks, all of that, it could be fake, especially in this case as the name has been blanked out and it is just a snippet rather than a full image. So, not great for when you're trying to surmise whether or not something is legit or not, but assuming this is an engineering sample, which if it is legit, it probably is, and we do see a picture of a CPU as well, and it looks huge. It could be EPYC 2, or it could just be a previous generation EPYC, we just don't know. But let's assume that it is legit. It would kind of make sense in a way, especially if we consider that this is probably going to be an engineering sample. So we can expect the full release of EPYC, or Rome 7nm to be more exact, to be over this. So when you keep in mind that this is an engineering sample, this is actually fairly in line with what we would expect, considering not only what we have seen from Threadripper 2 and the previous EPYC, but also the specs of this thing. This kind of makes sense. So if it is fake, and it very well could be, as I've already said, it actually kind of makes sense, and I wouldn't be all that surprised to see engineering samples of EPYC 7nm reaching this, and of course the actual retail version going over this. So why does this score make sense, I hear you ask? Well, it's due to various things. As I said, it is on 7nm, but we also have additional cores, improved clock speeds, and the all-important various IPC changes as well. All of these things coming together give us, I would expect, around this result, especially again for a engineering sample. But let me know your thoughts on this one, guys. Do you think this is legit or not? I think, chances are good that it could go either way, to be honest. But again, it kind of lines up. It kind of makes sense. But we're going to finish things up with a brief visit to Apple, as they're being a touch naughty, to say the least. Or should I say, allegedly being a touch naughty, as according to some users, Apple is apparently deleting films from their libraries without warning and without compensation. Now, this story originally popped up on Forbes, where their reporter John Archer discovered basically that you can lose things you have paid for from your Apple library. Basically, according to users who reached out to Forbes, they didn't receive any sort of notification or anything to let them know that, hey, by the way, we're removing this film that you have paid money for from the service. And obviously, when they confronted Apple about this, they just were fobbed off, basically, in all honesty, if the response that they have stated is the one that they actually got. And they said that, quote, they received an astonishing message from Apple telling them that iTunes is just a storefront and Apple isn't to blame if a film studio decides it no longer wants to make its titles available on iTunes. Now, Forbes is very quick to point out that Apple is offering some compensation kind of for this, basically a free rental for the inconvenience, but I can kind of understand why people are coming from when they feel that isn't really good enough. And, in some cases, people have lost not just one or two films, but, dozens that they have obviously paid real money for. And if you were given like a voucher for like the same amount of money, or a free purchase maybe, or whatever for each one that you lost, okay, fair enough, but a free rental? And they're not giving any sort of refund other than that, really. I mean, if you want to take it off the storefront, fair enough, but that money I've given you is now, for what? An empty gap in my library, essentially. Now, before some of you pointed out, this is in Apple's T's and C's, but I think what's really sort of getting sand in people's craw here is that people were not notified and were not really offered any compensation for their loss or anything. So while it's not illegal, it feels very customer unfriendly and feels, quite frankly, like a slap in the face. Like, it is very true that, for example, if I sign up for Netflix for X show, and X show is removed, that's fair enough. I'm aware that that's part of Netflix as a thing, or Amazon. If I pay for a film, it could very much be removed. But again, they weren't notified, and they were offered compensation in quotation marks. That, in my opinion, does not really compensate for what they actually have lost. In my personal opinion, again, this is all alleged. As I've already said, this is what users are stating based on this Forbes report, but it's not really what is happening, it's the way that it's happening, I suppose I should say. You know, this does not feel very customer friendly at all, and just kind of lines up with Apple as a company, really, in terms of how they deal with their store, in terms of the fact that you have to use their application for your music, and multiple people that I know personally have had their music just wiped and have had to reload the whole thing and that sort of stuff. So, not really brilliant. I feel like this wouldn't even be a thing if Apple had handled it better, if they'd given people a voucher for the amount that they lost, or a refund or something, or even just let them know that, hey, by the way, these movies are being removed from our service, here's a voucher for the inconvenience. We probably wouldn't be having this discussion right now. It's not really what's happening, but how it's happening that is the issue here, because again, it is in the T's and C's, but they could be going better about it, if you ask me. But you've heard me talk about this for quite some time now, over 10 minutes. So let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything discussed here. You will find a link in the description below this video to Paul's article on the EPYC topic which we have discussed today. But that is me done for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.